and looking at how we apply these strategies to enhance self-advocacy skills. And we're also going to look at some real-world examples from our experience together. So Kelly and I have been collaborating for about 2 years as we've been in this program and as she has developed this group. And like every new thing, you look at what works, what doesn't work, the challenges that present themselves, and you continue to develop. So that's what we're going to be sharing with you today. The first thing I want to do is just share a little bit about the Inclusive Education Services program at the University of Central Florida. So we are a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program. Please let me know if anybody has a question, raise your hand at any time, or if you want me to slow down. So comprehensive transition and post-secondary programs are for adults with intellectual disability. Our program in particular is a 2-year program for non-degree seeking students, and they earn a professional certification in their 2 years here. Right now, we currently offer 3 program tracks. So our program tracks are hospitality, social services, and early childhood education. Throughout the duration of their program, we have work-based learning experiences for 2 semesters and also a final semester of internship. So the main purpose of our program is we are working on developing employability skills as well as independent living skills. So again, the students will earn a certificate when they're done. Our program is inclusive. Students live on the UCF campus in the dorms, and they have access to every other thing on campus that UCF students have access to. Sometimes those are good things, sometimes they're not. But that is part of growing and learning and becoming an adult. Most of our students within the first few weeks are really out there and joining things of their interest that have nothing to do with our program. So it might be intramural sports. They're joining different clubs and organizations on campus. They're volunteering for different activities as well. So it truly is an inclusive program. The courses that they take, again, it's non-degree professional certification. So they take some internal courses, which are career development. And then the other courses they're taking with degree-seeking students, and they're auditing those courses to learn about the specific track they have chosen. So what's special about our program is what we call our wraparound services. So our student supports are a true wraparound to help students as they're transitioning into college, as they're learning all of these skills and becoming adults. Our supports include resource facilitators, which are their academic supports, and they get those services twice a week for an hour and a half at a time, and they're working on all things academics with our students. In addition to that, we have our executive function coaches, and those coaches serve to work on everything executive function related. So time management, planning, organization. Like any student who starts college, oftentimes it's a little bit of a shock. You no longer have parents or caregivers that are helping you to manage your life or checking to see if assignments are done. Now it's the student's responsibility. So our executive function coaches really help our students with those skills. We're also very, very fortunate at the University of Central Florida to have a registered student organization known as Knights Exemplar, and they are dedicated to our students. What do? So they offer that peer support. UCF is a huge campus, and a lot of students want to go to their first football game. It's intimidating to figure out how to go to a football game, how to access your student tickets, how to get there, how to find the seating. So our Knights Exemplar are volunteer students, volunteer peers who help our students with those activities. They also will hold monthly events for our students, things that are fun, karaoke nights, poem writing nights, extra academic supports. So they really are peer mentors for them. We also offer on-the-job coaching. So we have support staff that we hire who will go check in and observe our students at their work-based learning experiences as well as their internships. And throughout that observation, If there's more intense coaching that's needed, we'll then send support staff to actually be on the job with the student to learn additional skills that maybe the management at that particular job site does not have the time to dedicate to our students. Another thing that we offer is we partner with an outside group who brings in creative drama to our campus in both of our spring semesters. You might say, what does that do to support students? Well, creative drama really kind of takes away that typical academic structure, and it allows our students to work on problem-solving skills, socialization, communication, recognizing nonverbal communication, understanding it, and just overall getting out of your comfort zone. Because if you think about it, remember the purpose of our program is we're developing employability skills. And one of the toughest things about starting a new job is that uncomfortability, knowing who to go to, who's going to be a friendly face at work who can help you out with things if you need. How do you socialize at work when you don't know anybody? How do you develop those communication skills so that you're a valued member of the team?
Great. Excuse me, just a little bit about my role in this. So I work for the UCF Communication Disorders Clinic, speech pathologist by trade. I do clinical instruction now, so I oversee our graduate students who are obtaining their clinical block hours towards graduation. We have the privilege of having something here called the Aphasia House, which is more of a home-like environment within our clinic. So here's some sample pictures. That's our living room and our kitchen where when the students come in for evaluations in the summer, they get to hang out. We have some snacks. It just makes it a little less intimidating and a little more welcoming. So we founded Speak Up in fall of 22. After some work that I was doing with some of my individual clients, I realized they weren't telling me no. They weren't advocating when they needed help. Everything was just kind of go with the flow. Everything is fine until I would ask for comprehension checks. So we had this idea in the clinic to launch this group, and then we connected with IES, and now it's an integral part, one of their wraparound supports for the students. So it's been a really great partnership, and we're going to dive into kind of how we work together to support the students next.
So next, let's talk about self-advocacy and the employment journey, why it is so important. So self-advocacy is fundamentally about understanding our own needs and being able to communicate those needs effectively. For adults with intellectual disability, for anyone, this skill is empowering. So think I want you all to kind of imagine a scenario at work where you've really had to advocate for yourself. I'm not going to ask you for all of those scenarios, but I'll give you an example of mine. So when I've had to advocate for myself, most recently, it was I needed a standing desk. I have a lot of orthopedic problems and a lot of back problems, and I spend a lot of time at my desk. So I had to be able to say, this is what I need, and this is why I need it, right? And I got the desk, and I'm very happy, and it has helped tremendously. So now I'm able to go to work and be in a position where I'm not in pain. Right? Another physical example would be, let's say an employee has another physical disability that requires a walker and special seating. Well, that employee has the right to those tools in order to perform their job at work, but they're going to have to ask for those tools, right? So that's self-advocacy. So confidence grows. Good self-advocacy really involves clear and effective communication, which is just absolutely essential in the workplace. We have to negotiate for those accommodations that we need. Oftentimes accommodations for somebody with intellectual disability, it might be something like a laminated list every day about somebody's job duties. So they can walk into work and they can initiate the tasks on their own. These are the things to start with, and they make their way through the daily tasks. But if those things are not communicated, if somebody's not able to say, I need reminders of the tasks that I have to do every day, the people at work might not realize that, and they might think that the person just isn't doing the job, which eventually could get a person fired from that position. So self-advocacy is also about knowing your rights in the workplace. knowing about things like anti-discrimination protections and the right to reasonable accommodations, as I've just mentioned. And by understanding these rights, individuals with disabilities can navigate the job world successfully. So it really plays a role in career growth by enabling people to seek out those opportunities for advancement, request additional training or responsibilities, and also to express their career aspirations. If one of our students, for example, was at work, and this is a real example I'm using, and they're in an internship and they're doing the same tasks every day, but they come to me and they say, I would like more responsibility at work, but every day I still have only the job of the copy machine. I would like to try other tasks at work. Well, that's wonderful. Most employers would like to hear that because it demonstrates initiative, that you care about it and that you want to do more. But we have to be able to express that. And without the skill of self-advocacy, our students can't express that and then really be able to explore other potential things that they can do at a job that might get them a raise, or again, just value enough to be continuing staying in that place of employment.
Great. So when we're looking at self-advocacy, I think Kira did an amazing job describing part of that employment journey. But we need a definition to work from to help the students understand what they're looking towards, or the young adults what they're working towards. And I really like this Hayden and Schultz quote. It's self-advocacy is teaching people how to advocate for themselves and how to learn to speak out for what they believe in. I think that's something that we all think about when we think about self-advocacy. But then there's the other pieces where it teaches us how to make decisions and choices that affect our lives so that we can become more independent, which I think is the goal for these young adults. It also teaches us about our rights, but along with learning our rights, we learn our responsibilities. One of the biggest changes, or one of the biggest things that I think some of our students struggle with is that self-disclosure of disability, right? So when they're coming from high school, they have the IEP, they have everything they need. It's all kind of packaged and there for them. But moving into employment or higher academic post-secondary settings, they don't have that privilege. They don't have that capability of just having it follow them. They have to self-disclose their disability. They have to seek out accommodations. So they're starting to learn about the responsibilities that come along with the rights. This is a conceptual framework from Tess Fowler Wood and all from 2005. I don't know how many of you have seen it. If you haven't yet, I love this framework, not only for my students, my graduate students, but also for our students here in the IES program. And it really breaks self-advocacy down. So we have the privilege of having 3 semesters with them. That first semester, we're really focusing a lot, not exclusively, but a lot on the knowledge of self. Because we need them to learn who they are. And then, it looks at knowledge of rights, it looks at communication, it looks at leadership. And I love the double arrows because it shows that all of these pieces interconnect and interplay for effective self-advocacy. So we're going to explore each of these domains a little bit more. All right, so knowledge of self. This is going to be understanding preferences, understanding strengths, and understanding needs. Students with knowledge of self, of themselves, will actually be more empowered, hopefully more empowered, to seek out supports and advocate for themselves. We do a lot of work on how do you like to communicate? How do you not like to communicate? If you want feedback from your professor or an employer, how do you prefer that feedback? Do you want it written down so you can go back and reflect on it, or you can remember what you need to do? Do you want it verbally? We work a lot with them on identifying what their preferences are, so they can then advocate for them. We also talk a lot about disability. What does it mean? What does it mean for you? Disability is a small part of who you are. What are the other great things about you? So we really focus on the strengths, and then maybe because of this disability, what is it that you need to be successful? So really focusing on that knowledge of self the first semester, we found kind of making a tiered approach has been really helpful for them.
That's great. Can I add to that, Kelly?
Please do.
Yeah, so knowledge of self is extremely important. What we find oftentimes is when students enter into our program, their self-awareness skills are not developed yet to where they need to be as a college student who is looking to go out into the job market. So the knowledge of self is really huge. So Kelly and her group are doing it in self-advocacy. We're also doing it with students in the classroom. One of the things that we frequently talk about is being realistic. So we all have strengths, we all have needs, we also all have challenges, and understanding those things, because if we're not able to have the self-awareness to really look at these are areas I need to improve, then the likelihood of those areas improving with significance is slim. And again, understanding what you like, because as students right now are getting ready to graduate our program, they go back to this and they really address it again. And they understand that if they don't like being outside in the hot weather or the cold weather, they need a more temperate environment. That working outside in a theme park is not going to be a job that they will last at, right? So having that self-awareness, what do you like? Okay, then according to what do you like and what you can do, then we look at those qualifications of the jobs as you're applying for them.
Yeah, the other piece of that as well is interoception. So kind of their awareness internally and their emotional regulation. So what might potential triggers be for upset? What are some things you can do to get you regulated for the task that you're about to participate in? So really understanding themselves is really key for success. We also talk about the knowledge of rights. So here on campus or in the workforce, what rights are you afforded? And then how do you also seek out those rights? So they're required to seek out their accommodations through self-diagnosis at the university level. What are their rights in the classroom, in the workplace, in the community? And then we also talk about what resources they have available. So, jan.org, is there somebody who can come in and do an accommodation evaluation to see what might be helpful for you if you're not sure? So we really focus on those knowledge of rights as well. And then communication. As a speech pathologist, this is kind of our jam all day long. So we talk about awareness of communication styles and preferences. We talk about understanding differences in what is negotiation versus what is bribery versus what is manipulation. I think we all know the statistics of this population is often exploited. And so how do we help them become better self-advocates so they're not taken advantage of? So we do role play, we do tasks where they have to negotiate with someone. One of my favorite ones to do is we have two different boxes and one of them has like a cake in it or a something in it, and the other one is empty. And only one of the individuals get to look inside their box. And they have to convince the other person to either trade or keep the box, because whoever has the item is the winner, right? So we have seen bribery come out. We have seen manipulation. We have seen full-on demands. It's been really interesting because then we get to talk about what these different communication styles are. We also work on listening. What does that mean? What does it mean to listen versus hearing? And then the use of assistive technology. A lot of assistive technology will be helpful in supporting these students and workers. We also talk about leadership. So ultimately, we want them to take ownership of this group. We want them to come up with the topics that they want to discuss, what's relevant for them. We want them to take this information elsewhere and get involved as self-advocates in local communities as well, or in their local community. Okay, so as a clinic, here at our clinic, we thrive and we really strive to make sure that everything we're doing is evidence-based and has research to support it. So here's a little bit of the research just for your point of view as well, in case you'd like to build something similar. The research for post-secondary setting self-advocacy groups, and this is related specifically to autistic individuals, but self-advocacy is a predictor of retention, adaptation, and graduation for our students. At the SLP role, I've had students come to me and say, why are we doing this? How is this within our scope? Well, at the micro level, we get to develop individualized plans of care that benefit social, academic, and/or career goals. And at the macro level, we get to collaborate with our colleagues and other professionals and how to make a more inclusive environments.
So it is important to note that deficits in self-advocacy can result in lack of independence. If a person cannot communicate what their needs are, when they need their needs to be met, they're always going to be dependent on somebody else doing it for them. Because of that, self-advocacy deficits also result in unemployment. With that, we have social isolation. So, people with intellectual disabilities have been historically more marginalized. And really, for a long, long time, these people, the employment prospects are very slim. It's getting better now with more university programs opening up, better awareness and knowledge in society. But when a person doesn't have employment to go to, some type of employment, what happens is a lot of social isolation. A lot of what we get from our jobs, from our occupations, is meeting people, networking, making those connections, finding others at work who have similar interests as ours. Maybe that turns into a friendship at one point, or people do things after work, right? Think of the typical once a month Friday happy hours or lunches out that teams might do in the workplace. So social isolation really comes from not being able to be employed, to find those jobs because there's a deficit in self-advocacy. So benefits of participating in these groups are the empowerment, the increased confidence. I can say what I need. I can say what I want. I can communicate all of these things, and really forming those positive social relationships within the group setting. Benefits of the group, as any type of group, are always learning and teaching other group members. So not only do our members learn from each other, they're also teaching each other. And guess what happens when somebody is teaching somebody else in a group? Again, it's that confidence, right? It's that self-esteem. It's like, hey, I know how to teach you this, and I'm going to share it with you. Peer collaboration can't be, valued enough. And multiple communication partners to ensure that there's generalization of these goals in daily life. Because what's really important is that these topics are learned, but also that they're generalizing out into a person's community and they're not staying only there in the group, right? Role playing happens in the group, that's great, but we want all of these skills to happen in a person's life out in their community. So initially, this program was developed, Inclusive Education Services was transitioning into a new college with a new leadership here at the University of Central Florida. So anytime there's transitions, there's always wonderful opportunities for programmatic growth and development. Other people are taking over, looking at the program objectively and saying, what else can be done? What else needs to be done? Where are we seeing problem areas? So when that happened, we started collaborating, right? Looking at students, where they were, what they were doing, and then developing documents of these are our need areas. So as that was happening, that's when we started partnering with the Communication Disorders Clinic, because we realized there was this huge need for self-advocacy skills. And Kelly David and her clinicians have been frankly wonderful with our students. So after all of this, we started, and how does it work? So each student actually receives a full needs assessment when they come to our summer camp. So our summer camp happens every summer before the start of the freshman class. And in those 3 days at summer camp, the students will participate in these intake assessments. They'll have screening evaluation, hearing evaluations, oral mechanical evaluations, a strengths and needs assessment of pragmatics, and also problem-solving assessments. Kelly, have you added any others to those that I might not have on this slide?
No, we are mostly sticking with this. We do a writing sample as well, just for the assistive technology needs, to see if any AT might be helpful in like note taking and things. And we've also this past year during the interview process have looked at self-determination in terms of how involved they were in their IEP meetings, what they know about their disability. So we've done a little bit more of that up front. And we've done a parent questionnaire and then also the student questionnaire to kind of cross-check the reliability of both answers, because the interview process is a little competitive. So
Perfect, yeah. And, you know, so we can't, so our interview process to accept students into our program is pretty intense, but you can never learn everything you need from your interview. So basically what I'm trying to show you is how, when we've been developing this program and continuing to develop it, we see more needs and we are addressing those needs. Another thing that we're looking into adding to our assessment pile this year is also a functional needs assessment, because some students who have come in, who've been accepted to the problem, we've realized that they have more needs than we expected. So another thing we want to add is, okay, let's get their functional needs assessed as well, so we're really prepared for them when they start with us in the fall semester. So program development and communication. So communication is important, as we've talked about already. And basically the way it happens is, okay, we figured out, look, how do we communicate with students? How do we communicate with each other? Because we have all these different portions working together. We have the CDC clinic working with us, we're working with our support staff, we're working with outside agencies. And if we're not communicating regularly, things can just, you know, time flies, right? And a month might go by and we're not realizing what's going on in one way or another. So communication with students, what we've determined is best is we use a centralized group app. So ours is called GroupMe, and that way students don't have personal phone numbers of staff members, which, you know, those things shouldn't be shared. And that's the way that we communicate with students. It might be self-advocacy clinicians saying, hey, student, you know, whatever the student's name is, messaging them, you have group today at 10, where are you? You know, and maybe that's the reminder that the student needs because the student didn't have it on their calendar, forgot about it that week. So it's a reminder for them, and those reminders enable the success, right? That's helping them as they're getting into the flow of the schedule and everything they have to do on their calendars. Messages of gratitude following sessions or accountability messaging is always a good thing as well. And it also allows students to ask questions during the week. So you may talk about a topic in self-advocacy group, and then things come up during the week and they don't meet again until the next week. So by having this centralized GroupMe app, students can also message the clinicians to ask questions during the week. Communication with faculty. So generally there's a debrief following each session, and there's weekly communication between faculty, so our faculty and Kelly's clinicians. Also check-ins during the group time. And we serve as a conduit for information to ensure that people are getting necessary supports. So it's through our communication, our collaboration, where we're able to further develop and strengthen these programs, such as our Speak Up program that we have in IES. So this is what our structure looks like. The sessions themselves are 90 minutes in length, and there's a 60-minute group, which is interactive group discussions. And then there's individual for 30 minutes of time. And that's going to be the one-on-one goal setting and the check-ins, and also the particular problem solving, right? Some problem solving can happen in a group setting, but some problem solving needs to be individualized. So that's all happening in that individual time period. Topics that may help are going to be self-advocacy, setting boundaries, saying no, peer pressure, gaslighting, body language. Lots of topics are chosen by the group members, and that's a very important part of the self-advocacy group, right? Is you can see the group members are valued as collaborators. So it's not just the clinicians saying this is what we have to do. So Kelly's clinicians plan on a weekly basis and have their ideas for groups. But Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, oftentimes the groups go very differently, don't they? When something comes up in group and it's like, okay, we need to take a direct 90-degree turn over here, and we're going to be talking about something different today. So the plans are there, but they're also going with what the group needs are.
Yeah, that's true here. There have been times where, you know, we've walked into a room and the vibe has just been off because the cohorts are really close. All the students are really close because they follow the cohort model. But we've walked in and something, we've felt tension, we've felt like something might not be going well. And we'll ask, hey, what's going on? There seems to be something, brewing. And we've totally thrown plans away, and we've used that group time to work through the he said, she said that they're hearing on the back end, and the rumors, and the accusations, and we worked through a lot of that. So it's been really helpful. And then, we do 60 minutes as a group, and then we try to do 30 minutes as individuals. What we've found is that they actually prefer more of that group time. They want to interact with each other and with us. And it's been really interesting because, there's an age difference between myself and the IES students. And so what they would share with me is very different than what they would share with one of my clinicians, who are more often not viewed as their peer because they were in college together. So that's provided some insight for us into, their safety. Is there anything that we need to address? Obviously done in, through the correct channels and chain of command. But that student to student professional relationship has really provided us an opportunity to better support them, because it's sometimes easier for them to tell their peer that, oh, I've got this person at work who's just giving me snarky comments, rather than coming to me and it feeling more like tattling. So that's been really interesting to see kind of that dynamic, and how it shifts from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester.
Okay, I am being cognizant of time right now. It's 12:50, and I know we started late because of technical difficulties. I also want to make sure that we address the needs of our audience. So what we're going into next is some scenarios to give you some examples of how these self-advocacy groups are helping these different scenarios. And then the rest of the presentation goes into a lot of curriculum examples, our lessons learned and what we've done about that, and recapping. But I want to make sure that we give plenty of time for questions.
Do you want to go into the curriculum real quick? I can run through that.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
would be helpful for everybody to kind of see.
That would be great, because I think we definitely want to leave some time, and I'm assuming that everybody has access to a copy of this PowerPoint, right, Denise? And then and they can always follow up with us if they want some more.
Okay, so we'll come back to this just so we can kind of go through the other things. So I don't know if any of you have heard of telestrations. It's kind of a fun game where you draw a picture, the next person has to guess what it is, and then that word is used for the next picture. So we try to do interactive tasks to kind of demonstrate concepts. This one was perception. So my perception of what you drew is different than what you thought you drew. And then we kind of tie that to communication and tie that to interactions. So we try to tie in different interactive activities, like I was talking about the box with the item inside. So they get the hands-on experience with it and doing it. It's not just being talked at or talked to about a particular topic that can really feel abstract, because you explain perception or perspective. We also have some challenges with social media use, and they're adults. They have the right to use social media, right? But the decision making that's going along with that. So we try to bring in visuals of how to identify various types of relationships. We had one particular student who was sharing everything on social media and adding anybody at the university as a friend. And when we talked about this, the response was, well, they're just a friend that I haven't met yet. But meanwhile, they're sharing very personal things through social media, including, identifiable information and things that could correlate to identity theft. So helping them understand the different types of relationships, and then even what you share with those individuals and how you share it. So we go into that quite a bit. Here's more information on social media. So what are the pros and cons of having it? We're never going to tell them what they can and can't do. We just want to bring everything to light. I've had students come to me with, I need help. And when we dig deeper, they need help because they're getting spam messages through Google or through other messaging apps. And so we talk about how to advocate when you are, receiving a scam. If you fall for the scam, like, don't just freeze. How do you get help? And then what you should or shouldn't post and maybe why. So like maybe don't post a picture of your driver's license because this is personal information that people who want your identity would love to have. But then also different behaviors and, you know, what might be unprofessional, how you would interact with a boss versus a friend versus an acquaintance. And what that public perception might be. We've had some challenges, or they've had some challenges with identifying who might or might not be a good friend and what qualities to look for in friends. So we kind of talk about going back to that exploitation issue that many of our students or young adults face. What is a green flag and what is a red flag? What is a friend and what is maybe not a friend? So they can start to identify the qualities in the people they want to spend time with. So we talk about that quite a bit. This again is what is self-advocacy and peer pressure. That's a big one here on campus. I think it's true for any college student, right? You have students who want to go to the fraternity or sorority parties, or they want to skip class and go to movies, or stay home and play video games, whatever it might be. So we kind of talk about what peer pressure might look like. And then we provide some scripts. They come up with scripts for themselves. What feels good for them to say? So maybe they have a really hard time saying no on the spot. That's me. I have a hard time saying no. I recognize that about myself. I'm a yes person. But a yes person will get us into trouble sometimes, or get us overloaded with things sometimes. So we have them set up a script, and that might look like, let me check my calendar and get back to you. Right? That's not an immediate no. They have control over that response. They can decide how and when they want to say no to that person. Maybe texting, sorry, I can't make it, is easier than saying it in person. So we kind of talk about some of those scripting options. So they really have time to step back and reflect on the situation before diving into something that's facilitated by peer pressure. The weight of words. We've had some challenges with using words that they hear around campus. They're buzzwords, they're new, they feel powerful to say. But the reality is words have meaning. And so one example is a student was saying another student was harassing them. Well, that's a serious accusation that we want to take seriously. And you know, reporting it through the appropriate channels, having that student report it, but through investigation and discussion, the student was really annoying the other students. There was no actual definition of harassment. It was a one-time instance. So we take everything very seriously. We report it as it should be reported. And then through the investigation process, however that might be, whether that's IES faculty, the UCF police, whatever that looks like, we kind of come back and reconvene of, okay, what was happening if it wasn't what they said it was, and how do we support them in changing their vocabulary so it better fits with what they are experiencing. And then boundaries. Boundaries are so huge in college world. It's physical boundaries, personal space, it's emotional boundaries, it's verbal boundaries, and it's even time boundaries. I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. So we talk about they have control over those things. They're allowed to tell people no, which sometimes feels really hard. I always tell them no is a complete sentence. You don't always owe somebody an explanation. And it's okay to set boundaries if you don't want someone in your dorm. It's okay to set boundaries if you don't have the time to go to the movies because you need to study. And then assistive technology. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with some of these, but the World Pen Scan Go and the OrCam Reader. We also use readable. I'm totally blanking on it, but I can send it back out. It's a website that translates text into easy read. There's you know, a lot of different technology out there now that will read for them, that will simplify text, that will record things as they're writing. So we talk about different accommodations and how they might be useful in school, but also in employment. We have a lot of students who, this is something we implemented in the interviews this time, is what technology are you using or did you use in school? Many of the students compartmentalize that. They don't recognize that this is technology they can use elsewhere. And that's part of self-advocacy, is using the tools that you have and knowing how you can use them.
Okay, Kelly, there was a question asked on the chat asking if there is a specific curriculum that you use.
So I actually, I don't. I kind of follow this Test and Fowler and Wood framework of thinking about all the key pieces. And then we really try to put something together that's individualized. There are a couple of self-advocacy and self-determination frameworks out there. Just because of the nature of the fluidity of how the group goes, we haven't found one that really fits. As we're heading into the third year of doing this, I can kind of assume what topics are going to come up. But we really try to tailor the experiences and the topics to the individual students. You know, for example, we came in with an idea to talk about time management, and one of the students brought up Tinder, and then everybody else is talking about Tinder. So now we're talking about internet safety and self-advocacy and how to decide if you want to pursue this or not. So that's also one of the challenges of keeping it so individualized, that I find that the package curriculum isn't always easily modified to fit with what they're experiencing. But I'm happy to send some links. I think my email is on the end. If you want to connect with me, I can send some of the things that I feel that I have found helpful.
So we are
Oh, 2 minutes.
with 2 minutes late, 2 minutes left in this. So let's go to any questions that people might have at this point.
There are a couple of questions that were asked during registration process, and one of them is, can you go over how or who will teach these skills to the children? And I think you've answered most of that you guys teach the skills to the children.
I want to add, this is, you know, as Kiara mentioned in the beginning, the wraparound services. I'm not the only one who talks to them about boundaries. I'm not the only one who talks to them about time management. They hear this multiple avenues. It's just we all might take a different approach or say it in a different way in the hopes that at least one of those ways clicks. So
Okay.
it's really a team approach.
And how do you encourage a business to give your participants a chance to prove themselves in the work field?
Sarah, I'm gonna let you take that.
Great question. So we have lots of materials that we have created in the Inclusive Education Services Program. One of them is a handout that I often give to sites, and the handout is reasons to hire people with intellectual disability. So a lot of it is as we go out to conferences, we go out to schools, we go out to wherever people will have us, and we go out to work sites. As we're doing that, we're really talking about the benefits of hiring people with intellectual disability. All of you, in your backgrounds and our backgrounds, we know the benefits, but unfortunately, it's taking society some time to understand that a person with intellectual disability is just as much of a person who can do a job like you and I are. So it's really spreading the word and connecting, networking, and spreading the word. When our students go through work-based learning experiences and internships, I come across many inclusive employers. One of our new connections happens to be Aramark, which I did not realize at the time is a hugely inclusive employer. So there are many inclusive employers out there, but there's also just as many who aren't. Other things we do is going to Chamber of Commerce's, Rotaries, right? Doing presentations, talking to smaller business owners about the benefits of hiring people with intellectual disability.
Okay. Another question was, how can I enroll in inclusive programs for young adults with intellectual disabilities in the Hillsborough County area?
So in Hillsborough County, I'm not sure exactly, but I would direct that person to go onto the Think College website, because that talks about all of these programs in the United States. It actually has a map that you can click on.
Mhm.
Thank you, Denise. And that will give you some valuable information.
Mm-hmm. And as well, they also have the link to the Florida Students with Unique Abilities program, and they have a map for all the programs in the state and all the scholarships that they offer for those programs. So you can check that out as well. I think we did a program with them about a year ago. And they are looking for new places to establish programs. So if there's not one in the Hillsborough County area, maybe you may be willing to do that. Thank you, Lisa, for the FCSUA link. They'll also come into a high school and do a similar program for your young guns who are in high school. but want to go on to college or employment and not sure what to do.
Then Valerie, I see your question regarding, I hope I pronounced it correctly, I apologize if I didn't. Regarding how you would promote this to your clients. So this specific group that we're sharing about is, they have to be an IES student in order to participate in this particular group. I also run other groups here at our clinic. One is, it's language for life skills, and it's focused on that transition from living with families to the next phase of living, whether that might be group homes or living with other family members to increase and promote independence. But I know that I think, at least in the voc rehab that I've seen around here, they have a couple of groups. So there are other programs out there if they're not an IES student or able to come to our clinic for a group that is very similar, but not for college students, or not for IES students, rather.
Right. And there's another question. Is there a specific curriculum that the program is using to teach self-determination, self-advocacy skills?
Oh, I think I answered that. Was that Lisa's question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
Okay.
I already addressed that one. Yeah. Yes and no. I haven't found any that work for what I'm looking for, but they are out there.
Okay. I am going to share a few more slides real quick and let you guys go because I know they want their survey information. I put all the flyers that are in the PowerPoint into the chat so that you can download that. And I will share the link for the survey. So if you guys could please take a look at that, you can use the QR code or you can use the link. And I am putting the PowerPoint into the full PowerPoint into the chat right now. Either or, and your certificates will be emailed to you at a later date.
Well, we truly appreciate everybody who attended today, and feel free to email us if you have any follow-up questions that you think of later in the day.
I thank everyone for attending. I thank you for being patient with our technical difficulties as we switched from one room to another. And I hope that you'll join us on Thursday for Autism in College. And then we have things actually every week this month. And not all of them are about autism, but they are about persons with intellectual and or developmental disabilities and going to college and getting employed. So you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any difficulty with the survey, let me know. And I hope that if you didn't get the items out of the chat, I'll make sure that you get those when I send out the certificates. So have a great day.
Thank you.
Please,
I'll put the link in the chat. Yes. Give
perfect.
me a second.
Thank you, everyone.
Here's the survey link. Thank you all and have a great day.